Welcome to COOCs. Not everybody in here will know what COOCs are, and that's largely what this morning is going to be about. But one of the things that it's important to recognise, I think, at the beginning, is that COOCs are about people and people getting involved. They're not about any institution or any organisation. And in a way to try and demonstrate what COOCs are, I'm going to tell you a story. Before I do it, I brought my story COOCeteer jacket that I will wear. Because otherwise I thought, if I don't go through this and tell you the story itself, I've got my own COOC badge on and everything. It's all there. You'll meet the makers of these badges later on. I've got the book. The reason I've got the book is it was quite a long thing. Won't take forever, don't start panicking. And it's quite dark, so now it might not be the story that I think I've written down. But I'm beginning with Welcome to the Launch of COOCs because that's a good title and I think it works for all of us. And I wanted to start with by saying that there's so many ideas that have gone into the building of this whole project. It seemed, well, who knows where it started. It seemed to start, well, who knows where it started. But for me, I thought it started with a single, quite simple question. I will be accompanied all the way through images and text. What is learning is that single question. I think I've probably been writing or thinking about that question since I was in the classroom back in school, way back when the world was black and white and television had 3 channels and computers were the size of a house. And the question has grown, it's stayed with me. And I've discussed it thousands of times with hundreds of people. I've had that question change shape on me, and I think that at certain points I've understood what I think it meant. And it seemed to be summed up by these 4 points. What is learning? It's what you do at school. How do you do it? You keep your mouth shut. How do you know when it's done? You do an exam and you leave. And what's it for? It helps you to get a job. But even then, even when I thought I had that particular thing going on, I thought that there seemed only half the story there, and not a particularly pleasant or happy story. And after school, like everyone else, I did many different things. I went to college, I went to university, I did some wandering around, aimless but hopeful. I thought that I would get into all kinds of things, so I did some travelling, I did reading, I did talking, I did thinking. And then eventually, teaching. I've met lots of teachers in that time, lots of teachers that weren't actually teachers, they were just people who knew stuff and who taught me stuff and who gave me their insights and who showed me new ways of doing things. But now, at this particular point, I was a teacher and what is learning reappeared. Teaching for me, it began in Greece, but it soon took me to Blackburn. It was the first swap. And what I found is that I was teaching literacy to young, often excluded learners who left school with nothing. I was at Training 2000 at the time. And the question of what is learning there was pretty tough. It seemed the same old story was broken. So when I looked at these, what is learning, I'm not very sure. How do you do it? It hasn't really worked for me, so I'm not really in a position to tell you. How do you know when it's done? You get excluded, you get shouted at, you get thrown out of school, or you just stop going because it's not good. And what's it for? It used to mean for a job. It didn't really mean that at Training 2000 because lots of people hadn't worked, whole families didn't work. It was like the story didn't seem to fit the narrative really. The two things were disconnected. But the thing is that learning really took hold. Literacy was not the topic, though it was on the timetable. It was exploration, it was creativity, it was rethinking what was not working. By teaching, I found I needed learning more than ever. It had a purpose and it was exciting. Something opened up for me, and all of us then. What I learned in college and at school and at university wasn't answering what I needed to do. Over 4 years that I was there, I realised that discussion, asking and collaborating was the key to doing anything. I started to think, what is learning? But differently, I started to think, what is learning when it works well? What does learning feel like? Learning, when it felt good, was exciting. It was often tough, it was confusing, challenging, but exciting. It had a purpose. It promised change, it at least seemed to offer different ways forward. Success was engagement, enthusiasm, participation, it was play, and it was creativity. Often though, and it was all too often, that was challenged by a need to be seen to have learned. And that became something of a millstone. To have a defined target, a target that was agreed by others, very often created by others, and definitely assessed by others. It was either through an exam, an assignment, or a test. And the feeling could still be good, learning still worked, but it wasn't the same, not really. Enjoying this story so far?
Yeah.
Okay, I began to see the importance of compromise. And I made a split between two separate things, or mentally, though not maybe cognitively somewhere. Exciting learning and accredited learning. Both were necessary, but not always the same thing. At that time, and to be honest ever since, learning seemed to be most readily defined as something that took place in an institution of some kind, a school, a college, a training provider, a professional institute, a university. It took place in a place. The process seemed widely accepted, it still does. The institutions offer courses, generally by specialisation, discipline, subject. These are separated by level, length, experience needed, qualifications already acquired, routes to progression, days to attend, assignments agreed, deadlines in place, completion dates set, rooms assigned. The knowledge is prepared, it's assured, it's validated, it's checked for authenticity, for applicability, for accountability. It's arranged in blocks by specialists and by experts, it's separated, it's packaged, it's ready for consumption, it's checked once more, it's mapped to the tasks, it's mapped to the exams, it fits your presentations, and then, finally, we're off. Learning can commence. But there's just one more set of checks. Is it for you? Can you pay the fees? Are you eligible for the loan? Can you do Tuesdays? Do you know how long it lasts? Are you ready for that length of duration? All in all, it's a model with lots and lots to offer. Interested people, experts to help, national and international recognition of what you achieve, a whole structure of finance, assessment and support. But the more that we concentrate on this one single approach, there still seems to be the issue. Is this only half, a lesser half of what learning is? That's a picture by Katie Suggett. It's open, you can take it, print it yourself. And what it shows is the excitement of learning seemed to be a little bit like, when you got into excited learning, building windmills in the shadow of a nuclear power station. That was the analogy we discussed a little while ago. And whether at a training centre with young people who had no qualifications, or the university centre where people are studying for degrees, or on a postgraduate course, or doing photography, or trying to paint, or writing, or growing your own veg, or understanding philosophy, or knowing who we are, using a computer, making a film, when it works, when it's good, when it makes a difference, learning is exciting. But really, what is learning? I've not forgotten COOCs anyway. I am going to come to COOCs. The story revolves around that single question still. In that time, I've learned things, you've learned things, we've all learned things. But the world changes and learning is ongoing, and learning must meet those changes too. So what is learning? In one way is never answered, but COOCs is something that I'm going to propose, changes a little bit of what learning is for all of us. Places of learning, it's important to remember. I'm not associating colleges and universities with nuclear power stations, just with the massness of things, the things that are agreed, the things that are huge and well invested in, compared to windmill making, which is probably a smaller, less defined way of meeting our own needs. But the places of learning do remain clear, visible, understood, yet perhaps too many people remain outside. Perhaps too many people are left only with windmills, and windmills that are unrepresented and unrecognised. But perhaps the windmill makers, the people who are doing it for free, the people who are doing it for fun, the people who are doing it with each other, are doing it best. Maybe they have got and have encapsulated the excitement of learning. So what do I mean by a changing world? If I say that what is learning is changing now because of a changing world, what does that mean? Well, you all know that phrase now, just Google it. It's a new world, a new word, a new verb, a new practice, a new way to access knowledge, a new way to learn. It starts to change who teaches. That's what the web does. Now, YouTube tutorials, Facebook interest groups, wikis on how to do anything, they exist, they proliferate, they're everywhere. Teachers are learners, learners are teachers. Knowledge can't be fixed easily. Knowledge is a river, it flows, it has ripples and currents, it needs navigation. It's new learning perhaps, new teaching, new possibilities, new worlds certainly. But before I go mad on the newness of everything, I'm going to just flick through a few of these. COOCs is also about recognising very much that much of what I'm going to be talking about, or what we will talk about, is old. The past as much as the new is what COOCs is about. It's about recognising that beyond the walls of institutions, learning still took place, still flourished. Think of Blackburn, think of any town. Away from the institutions, there were local clubs, society, interest groups, philosophers, engineers, musicians, rocket makers, gardeners, growers, animal trainers, animal breeders, literature fanatics. The list is as endless, the list is as diverse and as rich as the number of people that exist in this town or in any town. Learning and teaching informs everything and is largely hidden. Outside the places of learning, the learning can be hard to find. It's there, it's exciting, it's between groups, it's with individuals, it grows and it expands and it changes, but in other ways it can also shrink and find itself in the shadows. I put a little thing there, Wake Up Blackburn, and this wasn't in the story because it was taking too long, but I will tell it. The suffragettes in 1914, in Corporation Park in Blackburn, there used to be 4 massive cannons from the Crimean War. And there was a small group of women in Blackburn at the time, and Blackburn wasn't known as a hotbed of the suffragette movement, but they went up there and they fired one of the cannons onto a street further down. Well, if you lived on that street you might not have been quite so keen, but as a movement, when people went up there, they found a little satchel, and in that satchel was some of their propaganda and some of the material from the feminist movement, and one parchment that they'd handwritten that said Wake Up Blackburn. And I thought that was a brilliant little piece of history, but it's also something that we constantly have to keep reminding ourselves to do, to wake up, not just Blackburn, every town, everywhere. So, and I think this is where COOCs comes in. I'll back to my story now, that was a little aside. Outside and inside, learning, teaching, all changing, MOOCs started to emerge. MOOCs started to emerge, massive, open, online courses. Academics from the most famous universities in America, now in the UK, also in Europe, were giving away courses for free. Huge audiences, or do I mean students, were free to access open online learning. MOOCs seem to offer loads of learning for everyone, a huge community of people engaged with developing and growing. Yet it still seemed very much rooted in the institutions, and the experts remained defined as the experts. There were star lecturers, there were major courses, there were 200,000 people on these courses. There still is, there's massive numbers of people accessing the courses. But could we change this away from the institution a little? Could we break down some of the barriers? Is it possible, I thought, to change MOOCs a little? Invite all walks of life, include the whole river of knowledge, recognise every little ripple and wave, every tributary, and knock down. And Brook was an interest group all of its own that deserved recognition, that deserved to be heard, that deserved to be shared with everybody else. Could we make COOCs? And what would COOCs actually be? I know you're asking that question. If I'm asking what is learning now, what does it mean for COOCs? He's not yet finished, but he's had his place. First, I thought COOCs recognises that teaching is something anyone can do, like learning. Not that everyone is a professional teacher, no, but that everyone has experience of what they know, what they can do, what their skills are, what their expertise is. Whether or not that's recognised by institutions, everybody has that. Pablo Picasso once said, every child is an artist, the problem is how to remain an artist once you grow up. And that for me seems true for learning and for teaching and for being and for anything. The emphasis is being on passion and enthusiasm for whatever interests you. A willingness to look deeper into how things are because you want to know how things are, not because somebody's told you that's how things should be and that's what you should do. It's a willingness and a passion to look at how things work, what they mean, who does what and why we can learn and how we can learn and what we can learn and from who and how we can do it together. How can we do things differently? It's exhilarating when you start to look at learning that way, that the whole world of learning and teaching starts to change. It becomes, and that's why I have this up here, it becomes of all places but also of no place. It's interesting that, actually this is the name of the guy who's now the principal at Blackburn College, but back in 1516 Thomas More wrote a book, and the book was about a wonder island where all things happened, all things were possible and people collaborated and there was no ownership of homes and people swapped houses and people did married and different things and skill growth was encouraged. And the Greek translation of that was good place or no place, but it's better known as that, as utopia. That was the title of his book. And in that utopia, the rich and vibrant community was created by a recognition of its time, at least, a recognition of the involvement of all. So what is our utopia? What is our place? It's a difficult concept. So let's ask more about learning and teaching. Can we generate a community based on exciting learning? I think so, and it relies on people. It relies on you. If you can be excited and enthusiastic, then we can create COOCs. COOCs looks past the notion of students and teachers as key terms and definitions, things that fix us and give us roles. For COOCs to work, we have to rethink. All of us can teach. All of us can learn. Enthusiasm and participation are more important than perfection. The emphasis on wandering and wondering, experiencing and sharing, playing and failing, then trying again. COOCs allows expertise to be from a whole range of subjects. The river is wide, fast-flowing and diverse. It has depths, it has shallows. If we recognise that, we can look at what happens around us. For instance, I don't know if they're here this morning, but Blackburn is Open is a movement now and an approach to changing the shape of Blackburn. It recognises that open is great, open is beautiful, but most of all, open is essential. Giving people opportunities to be able to share their creativity is not about forming a privileged band of artists. It's about changing the face of a town for everyone in that community by embracing openness, by embracing sharing. COOCs celebrates that and asks for everyone to get involved, for everyone to share their ideas, for everyone to develop their skills and give those skills to others, to throw open their knowledge and create communities based on their or your own expertise and passions. So COOCs, I'm going to get now to more of a point of COOCs. As it looks, it's great to have ideas on your own, and COOCs in essence is a website. It's a place for learning and teaching. It requires people. What is hoped is that you can come to COOCs free of any predetermined notion of what you can teach and what you can learn. The subjects covered are decided by you, what your interests are. That's what the courses can be. It can be beekeeping, tomato growing, quilt making, all great. Fluid dynamics, particle physics, yes. 19th century literature or Islamic art, yes. What is included is that meets the goals of the community. That includes development and inclusion for anyone that wants to be involved. No barriers to inclusion. Who we teach is open. Some courses may need a community that has prior knowledge, maybe they don't. You can point out when creating the course that courses can be as long or as short as you like. An introduction to something that has a specialist interest. or a community group that runs over several weeks, months or even years. The option for one-off creations or long-running discussions is there. Roles are open. You can sign up to the course as a tutor or as a learner or as both, but why not both? Share what you know and learn from others. Communication is important. We can learn from each other how to do this. How do we communicate ideas? How many creative routes are possible? We've made possible as much as we can. Video, images, photographs, written word, spoken word. From the very beginning we realised that many-way communication was vital. The forum that we've included on every course allows for all on a course to take part, to respond, to ask, to suggest, to recommend, to just play with the ideas. Creativity is important, and how we share what we know is as crucial as what we share. The technology is also something that, I like this one, it's important that we recognise that technology is essential. It's an online course. However, we don't want people to be put off by the fact that it's about technology or that it involves technology. We want people to approach technology as producers, not consumers. The emphasis is on sharing, not the technological skill, though that may come. That might start to develop as we learn how best to share what we know and how to grow it and how to share it, how to be creative with it, how to develop it. COOCs gives purpose to learn new skills. Remember that enthusiasm and participation are above perfection. We have tried in our design to keep things friendly, to avoid creating or complicating your creativity. Still, for all of us, we understand at different points that this is going to be potentially frightening. So we want to give guidance and support to each other as we learn new skills. So creating a movie, creating a film, creating music or podcasts or documents or creating courses, there isn't a right way. Nobody's going to assess what you produce. It's all about producing and learning from others and watching other courses and perhaps picking new skills up. Not new skills just because new skills are there, but new skills because they will help you to share what you're passionate about and what you're interested in. So what's it for? Partly we can drift back to the utopian ideal here. Being open, sharing, creating communities has many benefits. It allows us to learn across generations, to have a range of views from different backgrounds. Rather than just going to the museum, we could have people that have lived through the changes in Blackburn or in any town around or in any community who can share their stories. We have a category called storytelling that allows people to just come on and tell about their time when they lived in a particular experience or in a particular way of being. It doesn't have to be a course in any traditional sense. We have a category called poetry, but we also have a category called mathematics. It allows also for the institutions to open up, to give public lectures, to get the people that are delivering to small classes, even big classes in a lecture theatre, but to broaden their audience by filming those lectures and by giving them away and putting them on courses and encouraging people to come and look at what happens within the institution as well as outside the institution. It allows institutions to reach many more courses than one room could. It allows poets and photographers, artists and engineers, philosophers, community workers, volunteers. It involves everyone and can allow everyone the opportunity to share what they do and what they know. And I put those images up there because one of the key points of COOCs is it's important that we do not remain purely virtual. It's not about virtual learning. It's about having skills and knowledge that can be shared and that can encourage action in the real world. It's about visiting places you never knew existed and looking at our world with fresh eyes. Marcel Proust said that very famous comment that the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes but in having new eyes. It's about approaching your town, your environment, the ways that you think and learn and doing those differently.